Good evening, Professor Gonzalez, and good evening, class. My presentation is called The Chicano Reality and is going to look at prejudice in the American justice system as portrayed in the film Zoot and in the memoir we read, The Line Becomes a River. So a quick summary of the Zoot film. Pachuco is a term used to describe a Mexican-American gang member living in Los Angeles at the time. And they are characterized by wearing these Zoot suits and being really actively engaged in nightlife, music, and unfortunately, sometimes gang violence. And it tells the story of this Sleepy Lagoon murders. And it ended up resulting in the wrongful conviction of the 38th Street gang members, of which Henry Raina was the Pachuco leader. There are two lawyers in the film, Alice Bloomfield and George Shearer, who found that this case was an instance of sinarquismo, where the Pachucos are political victims of anti-fascist movements that were going on in America at the time due to the war. They believe that there's a lot of racial profiling involved, and in the film, as these men are being put on trial, there's a lot of prejudice against them. Racial slurs are used against them. The way that they dress is used to profile them as violent members of society. So this film, Zoot, is based off of actual historical events. The 38th Street Gang and Jose Diaz died at Sleepy Lagoon. Ultimately, 22 men were convicted. However, over 600 men and women and youth were rounded up citywide. Anyone associated with Chicano, anyone who wore a Zoot suit, sentenced to various times in prison, anywhere from a couple of weeks up to the lifetime conviction that some of the 38th Street Gang members were given. There were some attorneys that stepped up. They decided to pursue an appeal, and ultimately, due to their persistence and due to the impact of the Zoot riots, won the appeal, and the entire conviction was overturned because of the severe prejudice, injustice, lack of due process that occurred during the murder trial. So there's an underlying theme going on here aside from the racial profiling and prejudice of the American justice system against the Panchucos and Chicanos. And that is this theme of counterculture and what the Zoot suit meant or was supposed to mean. It was a way of finding a style of urban survival in the rural skirts and outskirts of law. Style is essential to culture and identity. The men who were standing the murder trial, they could not be granted a change of clothes by the court. Them being present in their dirty Zoot suits was essential for identifying them as the committers of the crime. In the film says Zoot suiter, it's just become another way for you to say Mexican without insulting your ally south of the border. So this sense of style, this sense of identity was ultimately corrupted and perverted by the court to criminalize Mexican American men, which ties into the main issue or the main theme here, which is Chicano prejudice in the American justice system. It's taking place during World War II. There's a lot of anti-fascist movements going on around America. Mexico is kind of letting some of those sentiments in. And because Mexico's letting those sentiments in, they then trickle into the Mexican American or Chicano population. You know, political reputations are at stake. The Chicano, the Panchuco population was an easy target to nail for these crimes that were taking place. There was constant overruling of objections to prejudicial evidence. So one example of that is keeping the defendants in their Zoot suits for the entirety of the trial. This issue of prejudice and racial profiling in the American justice system is also evident in The Line Becomes a River, which we read earlier this semester and prompted a lot of discussion about how Mexican migrants are treated in the United States. And we saw that mostly through Jose's trial. He has to fight for adequate legal representation that portrays a significant shortcoming of the American legal system. So, in conclusion, the film Zoot Suit and A Line Becomes a River both portray um, prejudice or racial bias from the American legal system, the American justice system. It is significantly more profound and detrimental um, in the case of the Sleepy Lagoon murders and Zoot Suit riots. We see how the American justice system has taken a sense of identity and culture away from Mexican Americans, has taken their origin away, and that same thing happened to Jose, who had to keep his origins hidden in order to avoid confrontation with the American justice system. This is something that's continuing on today and will continue unless there is significant reform in the justice system. Yeah, it was a really great film. So thank you for listening to my presentation.